Ukraine is exhausting Russian oil refining. Russia brought war to Ukraine not only on the battlefield, it systematically strikes power plants, substations, heating networks, water pipelines, and ports, everything that sustains daily life. The logic of this strategy is as simple as it is cynical. Cut the lights, stall the economy, break the will, transforming civilian infrastructure into a front line where every home becomes a trench. Yet, any war of attrition has a flip side. If the aggressor bets on energy as a weapon, then energy also becomes their vulnerability. This is precisely where Ukraine found an answer that cannot be measured solely by kilometers from the contact line. It has developed long-range drone and missile capabilities to bring the strikes deep into the rear, to places where, for a long time, the war remained distant news for Russia. In response to the terror against Ukrainian cities, a strategy emerged: hit the fuel, targeting oil refineries, depots, and port loading facilities, the entire chain of oil, refining, logistics, army, budget. The fragility of the system. For Russia, oil is more than just an export. It is the bloodline of its budget, the fuel for its logistics, and the primary raw material for war. But oil refining is a complex and fragile system. Disabling a single key unit can turn a massive plant into a rhythmless labyrinth of pipes. For instance, in February 2026, Reuters reported that refining halted at the Volgograd Refinery after a drone attack. Damage to the Crude Distillation Unit, CDU, knocked out a significant portion of the facility's capacity. Ukrainian strikes have not been one loud explosion. They are rather a series of painful needles into different parts of the system, forcing Russia to constantly patch holes, one plant today, another tomorrow, a port or terminal the day after. Geography of impact. Public reports have detailed attacks on major refining and storage facilities across various Russian regions, from the heartland to the Baltic and Black Seas. Ryazan Refinery. Significant reductions in oil processing were observed following drone strikes and subsequent fires. Volgograd Refinery, an attack damaged a CDU that, according to Reuters, provided approximately 40% of the plant's capacity, roughly 140,000 barrels per day. Kirishi Refinery, Kyiv. Damage to a storage tank during a massive drone attack, March 2025, serves as a prime example of how even debris can halt or restrict the operation of major hubs. Syzran Refinery. Reuters reported a halt in refining following a drone strike in early December 2025. Saratov Refinery. Primary refining processes were halted after attacks in November 2025. Kistovo, Sibor, Petrochemicals. A fire and temporary suspension of operations after a strike, January 2025, critical because petrochemicals are tightly linked to fuel and technological chains. Ust-Luga, Baltic fuel export complex. Reuters highlighted the significance of this terminal, reporting incidents and damage leading to prolonged repairs that can stretch the impact for months. As of February 19, 2026, Ukraine struck an oil depot in Velikiye Luki, Pskov Oblast, Russia. The strike was part of a systematic campaign, since destroying fuel storage facilities directly affects Russia's ability to conduct combat operations and redeploy reserves. Reports mention at least 4 explosions and the evacuation of employees from nearby enterprises. Business Insider noted that anti-drone nets had been stretched over some of the site's tanks, and satellite imagery, December 2025, showed coverage of roughly 15 tanks, yet the attack still triggered a major fire. Maritime logistics and market reactions. A separate line of effort targets offshore loading capacities, where every disruption hurts not only exports, but also the reputation of a reliable supplier. Following an attack on Novorossiysk, export shipments briefly paused at a level of about 2.2 million barrels per day, approximately 2% of global supply, causing oil prices to spike by over 2%. Drone strikes on the port of Taman, Black Sea direction, damaged oil storage tanks and terminal infrastructure. Economic consequences. When oil refining crumbles, it becomes visible not through official statements, but through price tags and bans. On March 19, 2024, AI-92 gasoline prices in Russia rose by 1.92% and diesel by 1.28%. Reuters estimated that in Q1 2024, approximately 7% of refining capacity, roughly 375,000 barrels per day, was knocked offline due to attacks. In 2025, these consequences became more palpable at the household level. Regional fuel shortages expanded, leading to queues and market tension, all while declining refining volumes and financial conditions made it difficult for independent gas station networks to build up reserves. Reuters estimated that at the peak of the strike wave in 2025, August to October, up to 20% of capacity may have been disrupted. In response, authorities resorted to export restrictions, gasoline, diesel, to stabilize the domestic market. To plug the deficit, Russia even increased imports from Belarus, with reports of a sharp spike in gasoline shipments to the Russian Federation in the fall of 2025. International institutions also noted the material effect. The IEA's September oil market report stated that some Russian refining runs were temporarily offline due to drone strikes, while Russia's export revenues fell to some of their lowest levels since the start of the full-scale invasion. At the same time, Russia attempted to put out the fire using reserve capacities. Reuters noted that the overall slump in refining was partially offset by shifting the load to other plants. This doesn't solve the problem, it simply makes it chronic. The system is running on its nerves, with no margin of safety. The logic of attrition. The success of the Ukrainian campaign is not in long-range magic, but in the simple logic of the industrial world. 1. Concentration. Large refineries and key terminals are nodal points. When they become unstable, the ripple effect travels through the entire chain, from the plant to the gas pump to budget revenues. 2. Complexity of repair. Oil refining involves high-tech units where repairs are measured not in days, but in weeks or months. Sanctions and restricted access to equipment complicate restoration and modernization. 3. Logistical dependency. Even if a plant survives, the fuel must be transported by rail, pipe, or through a port. When refining, ports, and warehouses are all at risk, empty shelves appear in a fuel sense. Ukraine has demonstrated that it can respond to energy terror not with a mirror of destruction, but with a mirror of strategic consequences. Strikes on oil refining and fuel logistics are not a story of revenge, they're a story of limiting the aggressor's ability to continue the war. When fuel becomes more expensive and scarce, when export flows drop, and when the budget falls short, the industrial system enters a state of permanent emergency. This is exhaustion, not one single massive blow, but a long road where every unit shutdown, every port glitch, and every export ban is another step toward ensuring that for Russia, the war is not a televised special operation, but a heavy bill presented daily by reality.